So the class that you're enrolled in and that you will be taking this semester with me is the class on Spanish 250, which in short is called The Spanish-Speaking World Today. And that's me right there, Dr. Anton Garcia Fernandez, my office, 427C in this building. So just a few steps in that direction. In the humanities, the foreign language suite, you have my email address right there, my office phone number, and also the office hours this semester. I've already coordinated with my wife, and they're going to be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 1 to 2, and also from 4 to 5, which is right after this class. And of course, if that doesn't work for you guys for whatever reason, let me know. And by appointment, we could also meet virtually or in person at a different time on a different day. So basically, this Spanish 250 course is a course that will be taught entirely in English because it's a general education course, and it's a course that will deal with the people and cultures of Spain and other Spanish-speaking countries, but also in relation to U.S. culture as well. As I explained the other day, we will make connections with Spain and other Spanish-speaking countries, but also with the culture or cultures that you are used to, which is the culture of the United States. Think also that this is the kind of course where you're not going to be simply, sitting there and listening to me talk and tell you these are the way things are in Spain, learn this, memorize this, and then you have an exam. No, we're not going to be doing it that way. It'll be presented in the form of a series of class discussions, and for that reason, it is important that you actually do come prepared to class. This is a class that has to do with the Humanities General Education core curriculum, and so the SLOs, or it's just, what is an SLO? It's a student learning outcome. That's just a fancy way of saying, what are we going to do in the class, right? So what are you going to get out of this class? What are you going to do in this class? Well, several things. First of all, we will analyze major primary sources of the humanities. That basically means that we will be dealing with things having to do with Spanish or Spanish-speaking culture. Examine the diversity of human experience in various humanistic media. That means that, it won't be just me here lecturing about Spanish history or customs or whatever it is, but we will have certain materials that I will be handing to you. You will be preparing for the different discussions. And it says in various humanistic media because it will not just be printed matter, but we will be watching short clips, short films, and things like that, okay? Recognize the continuity and change within the human experience as understood in the humanities. Obviously, Spanish culture, just like U.S. culture, is not static. It is in constant movement and evolving and changing constantly, and so we will be talking also a little bit about that. Spain today is not the same thing as Spain in the 1970s or in the 50s or in the 19th century, okay? We will concentrate more on the current day, but of course we will make connections with the past as well. So those are the SLOs, or student learning outcomes, from the point of view of general education, but then there are also some specific SLOs for Spanish 250, and this is basically what the course is going to allow you to do. So, first of all, gain basic knowledge of Spain, its society, and the shared values that maintain its cohesion. Obviously, the idea is that we will talk about Spanish culture, Spanish society, and the different traits, that make Spain the country that it is. Students will become also aware of the cultural diversity that exists within Spain and in the many countries where Spanish is spoken. You know that Spanish, like English, is one of the most widely spoken languages in the world. And of course, it's spoken in Spain, but also in many other countries in North, Central, and South America, not to mention a couple of countries in Africa. And it's also one of the languages that is most studied as a second language, not just in the US, but in Europe and all over the world. So obviously, we will talk about diversity. It's not the same to talk about Spain as it is to talk about Mexico. Let's think, for example, of the food. Mexican food has nothing to do or very little to do with the food from Spain. But even within Spain, depending on where you are, the food is going to be different. So, also in Spain, Spanish is not the only language that is spoken, as I mentioned the other day. There are other languages within Spain that are also official and that people speak. So we will talk about all those things. Important number 2, recognize the similarities and differences between Spanish culture and U.S. culture. We will always make comparisons and draw connections with our country here in the United States. Number 3, analyze various cultural aspects from different points of view and recognize the dynamics and great complexity involved in any cultural discussion. Basically that means that my point of view is not going to be the only one. I'm going to present different points of view, and you will also have your own. So if we talk, for example, about the national fiesta in Spain, right, which is bullfighting. Bullfighting is not seen in the same way in every part of Spain. There are parts of Spain in which bullfighting has been banned, for example. You personally might like it more or might like it less. And there are parts of the country, like the part where I was born, where it's just not part of the tradition of that area. Okay, so when we think that Spain is a country where everyone loves this or everyone loves that, that's not necessarily the truth. Okay, we will see that Spain, being a fairly small country in general, is very diverse, and not every custom is widespread all over Spain. And finally, number 4, access and use printed and, where appropriate, electronic learning resources indicated by the instructor, and to a limited extent discover and make use of other useful materials independently. There will be opportunities for you to also find your own materials when you have certain assignments that I will be giving you, for which you may need to do a small amount of research. But don't worry about that. We'll get to that at the time when we get to that, sometime later in the course. Now, I mentioned the other day, but maybe there's somebody here today who was not here the other day. These are the 2 books that we will be using regularly in this class. First of all, we have this book called Spain, The Essential Guide to Customs and Culture. It looks like a travel guide, but it is not a travel guide. It's a book about Spanish culture and customs that is, I think, really clearly written for English speakers. And then we also have this book called The A to Z, or The A to Z of Spanish Culture Beyond Toros and Flamenco. Toros are bulls, bullfighting. Flamenco, as you know, is the kind of dancing that is usually associated with Spain. Why is it called Beyond Toros and Flamenco? Because this book talks about the diversity of Spanish customs and culture, and tries to go beyond just the surface, and tries to go beyond the just the stereotypes, okay, to show you that Spain, just like the United States, is not only the image that it shows of itself. Just like the United States, I mentioned the other day, is much more diverse than sometimes people in Europe think. I always tell the story of my parents coming to the United States for the first time when I got married in 2009. I got married in Nashville at the Country Music Hall of Fame and Museum. 15 years ago. Beautiful place to get married, by the way, even if you don't like country music. And they had this idea that American food was terrible. They had this idea that all Americans ate was fast food, and that the food was a disaster, blah, 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 blah. And, my, at that point, soon-to-be wife and I, we made a point to show them otherwise, and to take them to restaurants that were good restaurants where they could see that, American food is not just this image that people in other countries sometimes have of it. And they got back to Spain raving about the food in Tennessee. So, that kind of thing. This book tries to do that, and it is presented in an alphabetical sort of arrangement. And so every chapter starts with one letter and talks about different topics. This is important so that you understand that the way that I'm going to be organizing this course is thematically. Okay, so we will talk about different things at different times of the semester, and sometimes we'll talk about customs, sometimes we'll talk about festivities, sometimes we'll talk about food, we'll talk about popular culture, different things like that. And it is organized in a thematic sort of fashion. These books, as far as I can tell, can be bought from the bookstore on campus, but you can also find online for, I hope, fairly cheap. That was my intention when I chose these books, that they would be economical for you, but also that they would be, good books to work with this semester. Additionally, I will be giving you certain materials that I have created myself or that I have gathered myself. Those will be handed to you when the time comes. And in some cases, I will post stuff on Canvas. So the Canvas website for our class is now already finally published. You can find this there, but you can also soon start finding, and I will let you know when, some materials that we will be using throughout the semester. It could be videos, and in fact, the video I'm recording right now, I will post there in case somebody didn't make it to the class today. Now, any questions before we move to the final part of this? Any doubts, anything that I have not explained? Yes?
So there's 2 exams
Yes.
for this class?
Yes. And that's what I'm going to be mentioning in just a second. Any other questions? No? Muy bien. Entonces, the final grade weighting components, I'm sure you'll be interested in knowing exactly what you'll need to do in order to do as best as possible in this class. Well, first of all, come to class. Okay, that's the main thing, because we will have the discussions here, and you will be preparing those discussions as homework beforehand, and then we will put it all together here in the classroom. So attendance and class participation is very important, as you can see, based on that 30% that you can see there. Then we will have 2 exams at 15% each, which will cover basically the topics that we have discussed in the class. Okay, they're not exams for which you're going to have to study, like I said the other day, names of kings or of rivers or things like that. I'm not going to ask you who was the king of Spain in 1875. No, that's not the kind of thing. But it will have to do with some of the discussions that we have been having in the class. There will be halfway through the semester a written assignment about which I will talk more when the time comes, and that's about 15% of the final grade. And then I mentioned the other day that this class does not have a final exam. What it does have is a final group presentation. Okay, and so the final group presentation, again, I will talk more about it when we get closer to the end of the semester, but these will be presentations that will be done in the class, in groups, and that will have to do with some of the topics that we have discussed throughout the semester, and in some cases they will mean, or they would include, a certain kind of comparison between Spanish culture, an aspect of Spanish culture, and that same aspect of culture in the United States, because I want to bring those 2 things together as part of this class. So those are the weighting components. There's not an oral exam or anything like that. This is not a language class, but everything that we discuss in the class is basically going to be the basis for all those activities that you will be doing throughout the semester. I'm going to try to make them as attractive and as interesting to you as possible, and see how much input I get throughout the semester in the different class sessions from you guys, because you will have your own views about these things as well. So again, it's not going to be a class where I tell you what Spain and Spanish culture is, but I will present certain things, and we will have a discussion from different points of view about those things, which could include customs or history or popular culture or different aspects of Spanish culture and the culture of different Spanish-speaking countries. Make sure that because this is a general education course based on in-class discussions, you come to class, bring all the materials to each class, and as far as how many absences that are unexcused can you have. The magic number, as they say in the MLB, is 5, okay? So make sure that you don't miss more than 5 classes, simply because that's close to a couple of weeks already in a 14-week semester, okay? Let me know, if you can, ahead of time, when you're going to be missing, and make sure that you come prepared to participate actively in the discussions and ask and answer questions in each class session. Bear in mind that in some of the activities, you won't have to necessarily give just answers, but also ask certain questions that you think might be important after having read a specific text. Okay, so we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I think that you are all prepared to do that. I am confident that you won't have a problem with this. And I also hope that you'll have some fun along the way. There are also cultural events that may happen on campus throughout the semester, and I will let you know about those in case some of those cultural events I find interesting for the content of this class. I could let you know about those events, and if you attend those events and you write a response, like a 1-page, 1.5-page response about what you saw in those events. This could be movie showings, could be lectures, talks, exhibitions, things like that. You could get extra credit at the end of the semester for those. And I'll let you know more as I hear about such cultural events. The policy on makeups, there will be no makeups for exams unless you have soundproof and a real reason why you weren't able to make it, and so we can definitely talk about that. But let's talk about that if we need to talk about that at some point. If not, well, try to be in the class for exams whenever those are. No cheating, no plagiarism, of course. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I hope at least that it's not going to be a problem. I'm sure that you're not going to be using things like ChatGPT and those kinds of things for any of the assignments. In general, it's fairly clear, when a student has not written their own work. And don't forget that originally, my intention in my life was to be a professor of English somewhere in Europe, and as it turned out, I am now a professor of Spanish in the U.S. But my intention was to teach English, which is one of the reasons why I think I'm going to enjoy teaching this class, because I don't get a lot of chances to teach in English at UT Martin. Most of my classes, of course, are in the second language, in Spanish, and so, I look forward to teaching this class. And I'm making a couple of changes in the day-by-day schedule because I messed up one of the dates, and so I need to make changes to the day-by-day schedule, and as soon as I make those changes, I will post the day-by-day schedule on Canvas as well. But I wanted to go over these descriptions of the course and what the course is going to entail before we start working in our first session today with a warm-up activity that I have prepared. By the way, these two books we will not need until Wednesday next week, because you know that on Monday we will not have class since it's Labor Day, and today and on Friday we will do, as I say, some warm-up activities that I have prepared, the first of which we will do in just a few minutes.